In a note written in my husband's handwriting, it said he'd be on a business trip for a month. Seeing it, I was certain. Our marriage was over. It was that night, alone in a room with no one around, lost in thought. What's happening now? In the dead of night while my husband was away, I suddenly heard the cry of a baby. I rushed to the front door and found a letter. And it read, "I can't raise him." To my astonishment, there was a baby inside a cardboard box along with the letter. Why is there a baby here? It was a situation I had only seen on TV shows. My mind raced, unsure of what to do, and the next thing I knew, I was calling my husband. "Don't bother me when I'm busy. You're getting in the way." My husband snapped at me for calling. But when I told him about the baby, he responded with startling words. "We're gonna raise this child. Got it?" With that, he hung up. His words lingered in my mind. There was definitely something going on. Well, I've got my own suspicions. At this point, one or two more problems don't matter. I'll find out everything and drag you down. My name is Jessica. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. I used to work for a major corporation, but I resigned when I married my husband, Mike. I met Mike about 5 years ago. Back then, he came to the company I worked for as a salesman. He was cheerful and a bit of a joker. I wondered then if he was cut out for sales. But when it came to work, he spoke seriously and clearly, surprising all the coworkers. I still remember how he left such an impression on me. A month later, while taking a break on a park bench near the office, a man in a suit approached and asked, "Is this seat taken?" Feeling annoyed, I didn't look at the man's face and just said, "Sure," intending to leave the spot. But then the man hurriedly stopped me. "Hey there, Ms. Johnson. How've you been?" Wondering how he knew my last name, I looked at him. "Oh? Mr. Smith? Good to see you. Thanks for the other day." "Thank you." "Thanks to you, Mr. Johnson, everything at work went smoothly. I really appreciate it." Mike, who I hadn't seen in a while, was just as playful as before, chatting up a storm with me. I naturally talked to him about work and everyday life. From then on, whenever I took a break, Mike was always there beside me. Although it was just for a short time, I cherished the moments spent with Mike, and soon found myself wanting to be with him all the time. Turns out, Mike felt the same way. How about a real date? Not just a 1-hour break, but a genuine date. Yes. That was the turning point for us. We became a couple, and a year later, we got married. And this year, we celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. Jessica, thanks for being with me all these years. Same goes for you. Thanks for always cherishing me. Celebrating our wedding anniversary together. I was overwhelmed with emotion, feeling so fortunate to have married Mike, and tears welled up. Jessica, it's become a yearly tradition for you to cry, huh? Shush. They're happy tears, okay? Give me a break. I get it. This happiness will last forever. Back then, that's what I believed. But as our 5th anniversary approached, I realized that had been just an illusion. For the past 6 months, Mike's been coming home late. He used to always come home right on time, but now he's usually home after 8 p.m. Honey, how much longer are these late nights gonna last? It's been half a year. This never used to happen. Doesn't it seem strange? Business hasn't been great. At this rate, our bonuses are gonna get cut. Everyone's working their tails off. Under normal circumstances, I would have believed him, but something felt off to me. My husband's company, although considered a small to medium-sized business, is quite well known around here. Their revenues have been increasing year after year, and they're always hiring new employees. Can a company like that suddenly experience a drop in sales? Having employees work overtime for half a year because of tight sales is simply not normal. I don't want to doubt my husband's words, but there's this nagging feeling deep down. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna head out for a bit. Huh? You just got home. I'm just meeting someone I know, that's okay, right? Considering he's been working late recently, I figured it wouldn't hurt to let him go once in a while. Just don't be out too late, okay? You've got work tomorrow. Thanks. I'll be back soon. Mike quickly changed into his casual clothes and with a big grin, left to meet his friend. That night, Mike didn't return home until past midnight. Oh, sorry, did I wake you? You're okay? That's pretty late. We just got caught up chatting, and it got late. I see. I'm sleepy, so I'm gonna head to bed. Good night. The next morning, when I woke up, Mike, who usually sleeps beside me, was nowhere to be found. Rubbing my sleepy eyes and looking around, he was still missing. Checking my phone, it was just past 5 a.m., even before my alarm. Mike? I called out, but there was no answer from him. I wondered where he went and headed to the living room, only to find Mike sound asleep on the couch. Why are you sleeping here? I tried to wake him up to get him to bed, but Mike didn't budge. And then something fell from his hand to my feet. Is that his phone? I picked up the dropped phone intending to place it on the table. That's when I noticed the image of a woman's back on the phone's screen. Who is this? A celebrity? I guess it's fine. I put my phone on the table. Can't get back to sleep now. Maybe I should take a walk. I left my husband sleeping on the couch and decided to go for a walk. Stepping outside, the warm sunlight and a refreshing breeze greeted me. Ah, this feels so good. Morning walks on a sunny day are the best. It's a great way to start the day. After about an hour, I came back home. When I entered the living room, I found my husband looking sternly at my phone. Good morning. Why the long face? Want something to drink? No thanks. Usually, he'd reply with a smile, but today he seemed off. Maybe he's just groggy from sleep? But then, his next words made me realize it was something different. Hey, can you not talk to me so much in the morning? Huh? It's just, you're kind of annoying. I was taken aback. He'd never spoken to me like that before. Without another word, he went to our bedroom, changed into his suit, and left for work without breakfast. Without our usual morning hug. While I was doing housework, puzzled by my husband's strange behavior this morning, my cell phone rang from an unknown caller. Normally, I wouldn't answer calls from unknown numbers, but for some reason, I picked up this time. Hello? Hi, is this Jessica? Yes, who's this? It's been a while. It's Sarah. Sarah Lewis. Remember we worked together a while back? Lewis. Sarah Lewis. Then it hit me. 12 years ago, right after graduating from college, I worked at a convenience store for a short time. Back then, Sarah Lewis, who was still in high school, worked there too. Why on earth was she calling me now? And how did she get my cell number? It's been ages, Sarah. I never expected a call from you. It's quite a surprise. I never thought I'd call you either, Jessica. If it weren't for that crazy coincidence, I wouldn't have. But I thought, why not give it a shot? She was always like this. She probably doesn't mean any harm, but there's always something about Sarah that gets under my skin. That's just so typical of her. So, what's this big coincidence? You're not gonna believe this. I work at the same company as Mike. Your husband, Mike. Really? When I heard from Mike that his wife's name was Jessica, I wondered if it was you. And it turned out I was right. When I told Mike we used to work together, he gave me your number. It was indeed a crazy coincidence that the girl I worked with back then was now working with my husband. But at the same time, I felt a bit betrayed that Mike gave her my number without asking me first. I'm glad you called, but aren't you working right now? Is it okay to be on the phone? Obviously, it's not, but now that I've heard your voice, I should get back to work. Talk to you later. Bye. She's still as lively as ever. I never thought I'd hear her voice again after 15 years. It made me a little nostalgic, thinking about the old times. It's been 15 years since then. And later that night. I'm home. Welcome back. You must be tired. The bath is ready, so you can hop in. Wait, what? From behind my husband, a woman suddenly appeared and greeted, "Good evening." A colleague from work? It's me. Sarah. Unbelievably, my husband had come home with Sarah, who had called earlier that day. Both of them held large shopping bags in their hands. Hold on a minute. I wasn't told you'd be coming over. When Sarah called earlier, she said she'd catch up later. You should have figured she'd come today. As a wife, you should know these things. I was slightly infuriated by my husband's irrational comment, but held my tongue since we had a guest. I wonder if they're that close, calling Sarah with such a friendly nickname? Hee hee. I caught a brief chuckle from her. What was that? While I was distracted, the two had moved into the living room. I let out a sigh and followed, only to find them laying out a bunch of alcohol and snacks from their bags on the table. What do you think you're doing? We're gonna have some drinks here. Mike said we should drink at home, so I bought a bunch. That's not enough, make us something. I wasn't expecting this. I only made dinner for the two of us. With that, Mike gave me a cold look and said, Then go buy something now. What's with that attitude? Excuse me? You have a problem when I'm the one feeding you? His chilly gaze was now replaced with a commanding tone. This was nothing like the Mike I knew, and as I tried to hide my shock, she gave me a sly smile. Even in my own home, what is this overwhelming feeling of alienation? Unable to bear being there any longer, I immediately headed out to do some shopping. What the hell? Although worried someone might hear, I couldn't stop muttering to myself. This continued even as I shopped at the grocery store. This should be enough. An hour later, I returned to the apartment after finishing my shopping. Standing at the front door, I took a deep breath and opened it, only to find an eerie silence enveloping the place. Hello? There was no sound of their voices. I gently opened the living room door and saw the two of them, snuggled up on the couch, asleep like a couple. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening right before my eyes. And from that day on, Sarah's visits to our home became frequent. She'd come over with Mike, and they'd casually start their evening drinks as if it was second nature. Hey, get us something to eat. I'd love a steak, please. Come on now. If you heard her, hurry up and get it. It felt as though I had been relegated to a mere housemaid, taken for granted. Mike doted on Sarah, and it was evident he hardly had me in his thoughts anymore. On her part, Sarah often threw condescending remarks my way, making me feel utterly humiliated. I'd never felt so low. My feelings towards the two of them were nothing but negative. Ever since Sarah started calling, I felt like I had been living in a never-ending nightmare. I bore the brunt of their taunts and verbal abuse. I often found myself wanting to escape this toxic environment. 6 months after Sarah started visiting, she suddenly stopped showing up. Around the same time, Mike began coming home even later. One morning, I woke up and noticed Mike wasn't in bed. I headed to the living room and found a note on the table. In Mike's handwriting, it simply read, "Gonna be on a business trip for a month." Seeing that, I was certain. I realized our marriage was over. One night, as I sat alone in the empty room lost in thought. What was that? In the middle of the night, while Mike was away, I suddenly heard the cries of a baby. I rushed to the front door and found a letter. It read, "I can't raise this child." Incredibly, inside the cardboard box was a baby, along with a letter. Why is there a baby? It was a situation I had only ever seen on TV shows, but now it was happening to me. My mind raced in panic, unsure of what to do, and before I knew it, I was calling my husband. Don't bother me when I'm busy. You're disturbing me. He was furious that I had called. But when I told him about the baby, he replied with shocking words. We're gonna raise that child. Got it? And with that, he hung up. His words lingered in my mind. Something was definitely up. But I had my own plans. I didn't care if 1 or 2 more troubles came up now. So, I'll uncover everything and bring you down to rock bottom. After that, I quickly grabbed some things and left the apartment. 2 hours by car. It's been a long time since I've been back. Even outside the apartment, there was a place for me to go. Welcome home. Mom, I'm back. I had already informed my mother that I would be returning. At the same time, I had asked her for a favor. Mom, about that favor I asked. I've made the contacts, Jessica. Now, all you need to do is act. Though I had come back to my parents' house thinking of resting and healing from everything, there was no time for that. My husband, Mike, would be back from his business trip in a month. I had things that needed to be done by then. One day, as I was cleaning the room, Mike called. Hello? Hey! Where the heck are you right now? My husband was immediately aggressive on the phone. You call out of the blue? What on earth could someone on a business trip possibly want? I don't give a darn about that. Where are you? I came back early. It's amazing you still have a job. Normally, you'd be the first on the layoff list. Shut it. Just tell me where you are. No matter what I said, Mike insisted on knowing my location, making it impossible to have a conversation. I'm at my parents' house. The kid's there with you, right? Yes, sleeping soundly in the back room. Come back with the child right now. Got it? Get back here immediately. His behavior was so different from before, it reminded me of the man he once was. You've changed a lot. You weren't like this before. People change, Jessica. Anyway, don't forget what I just told you. Understand? With that, Mike hung up. It's absurd. But if he hasn't mentioned that thing, does that mean he hasn't noticed it? If he returned to the apartment, he'd definitely see it. If that's the case, it makes sense. It became clear that Mike wasn't at the apartment. Not wanting to waste this opportunity, I drove straight there. Upon arriving, I grabbed that from the table and immediately headed to a specific location. 20 minutes later, I arrived at a single-family apartment complex. You live in a pretty nice place. There was a familiar compact car parked in front of the apartment. Just as I thought. A familiar compact car. It's Mike's car. And the fact that it's parked here is proof that my husband must be here. What could be so important that he'd cut his business trip short to be here? At that moment. Then it happened. From inside the house, I heard a woman's scream. And right after that, a man's furious shout echoed. This might be bad. I quickly pulled out my cell from my bag and called someone. However, throughout that time, cries from the woman and shouts from the man continued to emanate from the house. Just when I was getting really worried, a car pulled up behind me. Oh. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. On a whim, I tried the doorknob and to my surprise, it was unlocked. I cautiously opened the door and called out, but there was no response. From deeper within the house, a voice cried out for help. Rushing to the room from where the voice came, I found a man menacingly approaching Sarah with a look of fury on his face. Why are you here? What are you doing? You shouldn't be threatening a woman like this, especially as an adult. Shut up. Stay out of it. This is between me and her. A problem, huh? I couldn't help but think, isn't the problem yourself, in my mind? Jessica! Please help me! He suddenly attacked me. All right. I can see what's happening, so you don't have to spell it out for me. What? You just told him not to treat women like this. And now you're being so dismissive of me? Can't you see I'm in distress? That's because I get it, okay? Just be quiet for a second. I've got things to handle. While Sarah was complaining about something, I had more pressing matters to attend to. I have more important things to deal with than that. I stepped outside the house for a moment and headed towards a car parked outside. I called out, "Excuse me," and from inside the car, a well-built man stepped out. And with that man, I headed back to the room where the two were. Who's this old man?
Why's he here?
Upon seeing the new arrival, both of them froze. Allow me to introduce you. This is Sarah's father, Mr. Carter.
What?
Seeing Sarah's father, Mike instantly distanced himself from Sarah, a complete change from his previous demeanor. On the other hand, Sarah's face turned pale as a ghost at the sight of her father and she froze, looking down. Nice to meet you. I'm Carter, Sarah's father. Jessica called me over. What the heck is going on here? Sarah, what's your relationship with this man? The two clearly looked intimidated by Carter's imposing tone and demeanor. He's my husband. What? So, you're telling me you were having an affair with my daughter? Well, that's one way to put it. At that moment, Carter's face turned fierce, glaring at Mike with piercing eyes. Mike looked like a deer caught in headlights, completely frozen. Soon, Carter's face was inches away from Mike's. Mike looked utterly clueless about what to do next. You made your bed, now lie in it. It wasn't clear if it was these words that broke Mike's spirit, but he collapsed on the spot. From her bag, I took out a paper and placed it in front of Mike. I think you'll understand when you see it, it's a divorce paper. My name's already on it. You just need to sign. She also placed a pen next to it. Defeated, Mike signed the divorce paper without resistance. Thanks. As for alimony, my lawyer will be in touch later. We'll discuss the details then. Mike silently nodded. But this incident wasn't over. Standing nearby was the very man who had ruined Jessica's life. You're truly despicable. You played with my feelings, always threatening to leave. And this is how you end things? Jessica spat these words out at her ex-husband. But, to her surprise, he responded with newfound vigor. You say I played with you? Don't kid yourself. You were the one who approached me first. Saying you had feelings for me. Saying you wanted to be with me. If it wasn't for you, my life wouldn't have turned out this way. What the heck? Anyone who'd take that seriously is the fool. First off, thinking you're some big catch is your first mistake. Because of you, my life's a complete mess. Being seen by my dad in a place like this is just the worst. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? If anyone's the worst here, it's you. I turned you down, but you kept saying you wanted our baby. And when the baby came, you said it wasn't what you intended, that you didn't expect to really have a child. That you wanted to live your life and wanted a break, but you didn't want the responsibility of the child. So, leave it to me, right? You're way more to be blamed. I didn't say all that. This is going nowhere, and listening to this nonsense is just a waste of time. Okay, stop. I've heard enough from both of you, just cut it out. You're making everyone irritated. The two looked over, panting, as if wanting to say something. I could tell they wanted to say something, but probably seeing Carter standing next to me, they seemed too scared to utter a word. I get it, if you have a big, intimidating guy like that staring you down, you'd be too scared to say anything. Then Carter suddenly asked Sarah. What's going on with this story? Are you pregnant with his child? Oh, no, Dad, it's not like that. I didn't want this, but he was so pushy. Darn it. I completely forgot to mention that Sarah was pregnant. What? Why are you blaming me? You were the one who came on to me. It's not true. I didn't do anything. How can a baby come if you didn't do anything? Adding fuel to the fire. You. That's right. If you hadn't done anything, none of this would have happened. I probably shouldn't have invited him in the first place. Hey, hold on. She added more. I thought we were pretty much done, but since we're here, I'll give you this. I casually tossed several photos onto the table. Those pictures undeniably proved their affair. These are pictures capturing the two of you in the act. It was a real hassle getting these. While you were on your business trip, I had the divorce papers drawn up and hired a detective. All this in such a short time, you know? Why would you go through all that trouble? Well, I had to. I can draw up the divorce papers myself, but to catch you two cheating, I needed a pro. It did cost me a pretty penny, but thanks to that, I got the evidence. I'm just presenting it a bit late, but you have to really take in the fact that you cheated, right? The sight of the incriminating photos completely deflated the two. Just as they thought it was over. You two better be ready for what's coming. What? Dad. Carter only found out about Sarah and Mike's affair moments ago. And it was only from words. Upon seeing the photos, he realized that they really were having an affair. Sarah, I'm taking you straight home. We'll decide what to do next once we're there. And Mike, you'll have to pay Jessica alimony, right? You need the money ASAP, don't you? I know a place where you can make good money. Upon hearing this, both were trembling in fear. Days later, both of them resigned from their jobs. The reason was that news of their affair had spread throughout the office, making it uncomfortable for them to stay. Later, as Carter told it, Sarah tried to go back to her parents' home and hoped they would forgive her. However, their anger didn't subside, and she was kicked out along with her baby. Now, she's living in a rundown apartment, working day and night to support her child. As for her ex-husband, he's working at a high-paying job Carter recommended to cover the alimony and child support. Apparently, it's a job at sea, and once he leaves, he can't return for several months. Well, after such a betrayal, it's only fitting. As for me, I stayed at my parents' home. My mother helps with the housework, and I have found a new job and made some new friends. Life feels more fulfilling now. My parents often ask when I'll marry again, but I think I'll wait for a while. Maybe when I meet the right person, I'll think about it. For now, I want to enjoy this life.